Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us again on YouTube. Today's session is all about drone regulations, so the new regs that have come in this year. Hopefully, just a little bit step closer to explaining them and understanding them so you can make more educated decisions. There's lots of questions that are out there all the time. So yeah, I'm Jamie Gordon, been with Copters for about 2 years now, all part of the business development side, and we're here with the head of training, Duncan.
Afternoon, folks. My name's Duncan, Hewitson, head of training here at Copters. Primarily kind of spend my day-to-day managing the team that we have of people obviously working behind the scenes to help deliver not only just the CA regulated training, but a lot of the CPD courses that we offer in the academy.
Awesome. So yeah, we'll have a bit of a chat today. If you've got any questions, make sure you use the tab on the side. We've got Beck helping us out on this side, so any questions, we can get them in and kind of just bounce it around. We've stripped it right down compared to other sessions that we've had, just to make it a little bit clearer. There's obviously a lot to cover when it comes to regulations. So if you do have any further questions, either jump in or on the chat, or give us a call. In the office, got loads of guys that we've gone through the training. So yeah, no problem. We can touch on that. But yeah, we've got about 10 slides that we're going to work through today. And these webinars, these YouTube lives that we're doing, we're going to do them every month, but just slightly tweak them a little bit, just so it's not the same content every single month. So yeah, today's going to be very much an overview. We'll dive into that as well as per. Yeah. Obviously Q&A at the end as always, and then we'll just move on. So yeah, today's session is an intro into the regulations, whereas before we've really dived in what they actually mean to the industry. So something that we're picking up on is the phrase, what do I need? Instead of what should I really push myself to do? It's just like, what is the minimum amount of training that I need to kind of tick that box? So we're just going to try and clear that up. So kind of on one side, what you need to tick the box, and then realistically what you should be pushing to do. In terms of what courses do I have to do? Do I have to sit the courses again? What's the process and what does that look like for you? And then finally, how much does it cost, which is always the big question at the end of the day. So yeah, we'll clear all of the above up. So to jump into the new regs, they've obviously kicked in from the 31st of December. All of them now, there's a lot of noise. There was last year when we didn't really know what was going on. Bit of a mad panic. I feel like the industry is starting to get there now. But yeah, generally, there are 3 categories which we need to be aware of now. 2 main ones, but generally 3, so you're aware. Whereas with the PFCO, there was a really nice line in the sand, which was kind of ideal for everyone. Yeah. But yeah, do you want to dive into the categories and I'll just chip in with it?
Yeah, absolutely. So I suppose for anyone familiar with the process last year, it was either you operate as a hobbyist. If you operate as a hobbyist, you need to maintain 150 meters away from like a congested area. And yeah, what I mean by that is like a town, city, an industrial estate, that sort of thing. If you then want to operate commercially, so anything in behalf of your company or for any valuable gain, you then needed to go down the permission for commercial operations route, which was absolutely fine at the time, and was something which obviously Copters, have been leading in the industry in terms of training for years and years. But I suppose they were the only 2, whereas it's a lot easier now. So post December 31st, there's no distinction between the hobbyist and commercial flying, like you were saying. How they're assessed, it's based on risk, and it makes complete sense. If you want to fly an aircraft close to people, you need to either have it lighter, because then there's less risk, or you need to have additional qualifications to prove that you can assess the risks and operate safely. If you want to fly something light, far away from people, then there isn't absolutely a need to undertake a huge, overwhelming amount of training. But again, it's all dependent on the sort of flying that you're doing. So obviously we've got the open category on the left. So by default, this is where you'd sit if you were to buy a drone, and then depending on the weight, that determines how close you can get to people. You don't need to get authorization from the CAA. So say, for example, you booked onto our A2 CofC course. Once you've passed your theory test, we would issue your certificate, sometimes same day, might be a couple of working days if you're taking it over the weekend. And that's it. Once you get it, the certificate itself, you're perfectly able to go out and operate under those limitations. And yeah, they're based on the aircraft's weight primarily. And the distances of the cylinder, so we can't overfly unless our aircraft's really light. Yeah. So, if the aircraft's below 250 grams, like a Mavic Mini, then we can overfly people in the open category. But if we're flying something like a Mavic or a Phantom or a Matrice, that's when we need to either maintain 150 meters away from these people in the congested areas, or we need to look at going a step up and looking into the specific category, which involves slightly riskier flights because we're flying an aircraft that's a lot heavier, closer to people. I mean, the generic permission that you would get from the CAA would allow you to fly within 30 meters of uninvolved people, so the general public, for takeoff and landing, and then 50 meters in flight. Think of that as like a bubble, so you can overfly them. So, you can fly really close to people with this operational authorization in that category. But in return for that, the CAA needs you to undertake a little bit more training, just to prove competency and also demonstrate that in a flight test, but also produce an operations manual, which really comes in handy for a lot of the larger companies that need that level of, I suppose, planning, preparation, need that level of kind of, authority with a large group of pilots.
Yeah, 100%.
We've got the certified category on the right, but it's important to understand that it's there, but we won't dive into it. It allows you to fly aircraft way over 250 kilos. We're talking about Amazon delivering your packages and Uber Eats delivering your takeaways, stuff like that.
Yeah, we're not there just yet.
Absolutely.
But I think one thing to take from what you said there already is there's a lot of loopholes and there's a lot of ways we can take advantage. I think to start with, it's such a negative outlook on these new regs or this big change. But what you'll find is with technology, it will change massively, and as more people are doing it, this is great for getting people in. You've got things like the A2 CofC, this open category. There's that 30 meters, that's really close to people. People say, oh, we want to get close, we want to fly close to buildings, to vessels. To be fair, at the beginning, you don't. You want to keep a distance. There is a lot of risk, and it's all about evaluating that. I think if there's one thing I've taken is you just got to evaluate it as if it is like a maths equation. The more risk, the heavier it is, that risk is just going higher. The more training that you want to be doing. So it's all about evaluating what's going on. Whereas with the PFC, you kind of just tick the box. And for some people, they didn't need that. They didn't need that much.
Absolutely, yeah. It was so completely unnecessary for some individuals. I suppose more so for the, perhaps the sole trader that is a photographer, self-employed, and then once they'll add drones on, you can, now you can potentially get away with doing that just with an A2 CofC and obviously compliant insurance as well, which is great. It opens the door to make it a lot easier and cheaper for organisations to start using drones in their businesses.
Yeah, I think for the industry, this is only going to be a good thing, isn't it? Getting more people into it. And I've had the comment of a lot of people that have done the PFCO, for example, or there's all these A2 CofC people that are doing it super cheap and now working commercially. So I get that. But when there was a lot of people kicking off about the £9 originally when that came out. Whereas,
for the buy right,
So exactly. And I think if a lot of people were kicking off about that they didn't want to pay that money. If they don't want to pay that, they're not going to pay for the A2 CofC. What I would say is if you're one of these people and you're worried a little bit, then as I've just been talking about on the marketing YouTube live that I was doing, you need to stand out yourself then. You need to do a better process. You need to supply better products. So it's differentiating yourself from the lower standard.
100%. It's never been easier to get qualified to operate unmanned aircraft. So and with that, obviously, we've seen a huge amount of people starting to adopt this technology and flying through our training courses. But obviously, absolutely with that, it just means that for some people, you need to have something else to supplement it, whether that's experience in a specific area or it's just more, just a specific skill group.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think we'll crack on to the next step, but we could, in terms of the different categories, this is a really nice way to understand it and kind of have that risk element in your head. We'll touch on this in more, I suppose, in terms of training anyway, but just a quick overview of that A2.
Absolutely. So I was just talking before about the open, specific and certified that are at the top. So they're the three different categories that we have. So most of us are in the open. You might need to get the A2 CofC if you want to start flying closer to people than a lighter aircraft. But then if you fly something a bit heavier and it's more so commercially focused, then you'll probably have to operate in that specific category. undertake your GDC to then obtain an operational authorization. But if we just take ourselves back to the open category, it gets quite complex because I was saying before, the limitations are based on the weight of the aircraft. So they further divide that into 3 different subcategories. So we've got A1, A2, and A3. If we start at the bottom, A3 is far away from people. So if you go out and buy a drone, it's, say for example, go out and buy a Mavic 2 Enterprise Advanced. I need to register it online, do the flyer ID and the operator ID. But then after that, I would just operate in that A3 subcategory, 150 meters away from a congested area, 50 meters away from people. If I then want to fly that aircraft in a congested area, I've got to undertake the A2 CofC. So I do that qualification. That then allows me to fly a bit closer, so 50 meters from people. But that's not overflight, that's just horizontal. If I want to overfly, you have to go and do the GDC. And then you've got the A1, which refers to much lighter aircraft, so predominantly under 500 grams.
Yeah, a couple of examples of those maybe.
Like Parrot Naffy falls into that. The Mavic Mini, obviously, really light aircraft, which some of them do the job, and some of them are like a great supplement to your kind of workforce, so to speak. But depending on what you're using, for the majority of people, the aircraft sitting in this category is almost like a backup aircraft.
Yeah, we're definitely finding that. A lot of the large companies that we're working with have these drones now in the fleet, like you're saying, Duncan, because it helps out. It gets into some situations where they need. So yes, especially the Mavic Minis, which is it's actually classed as a toy drone. We have consumer, we have enterprise, but the Mini is obviously such a small little drone. I think on DJI website it says something about being 14 years old, which is a bit insulting actually, because there are a lot of people looking into them. But they have a use. Obviously, that the data that they capture is limiting in some scenarios, but it will their purpose in some scenarios.
Depends on what you need it for. Like, I mean, I'm pretty sure the Mavic Mini 2 shoots 4K, but the bit rate of the video isn't going to be massive, so it's not going to be amazing quality, but it is sufficient. If you need it specifically for one 10-second shot, it will probably do the job, and it's not a huge amount of money as well.
That's the thing. We've seen quite a few people kind of go for them, get them in the fleet because it'll tick a box. It is a backup drone if all else fails. So it's a wider picture, isn't it? And it's taking advantage of these new regulations.
I suppose the Anafi thermal is quite a good example for that. It's something which is relatively, let's say, cheap. It's cheap for what you get in regards to the thermal capability of it. But because of the weight, it sits in an area where it's not easy to get closer to people without additional permissions.
Yeah, and they're cracking up drones, to be fair. Yeah. Okay, awesome. So next is just an A2 overview, and also just a bit of a touch on the A2 CofC course, I think, as well.
Yeah, sure. I I suppose that first paragraph just talks about the requirement for obtaining to obtain an A2 CofC. We talked about that earlier, but the A2 course itself, thankfully there's no flight assessment, so it's not like, we'll talk about the GDC a bit later, there's no flight assessment for this, so it can be done completely remotely, and it's done predominantly online, so all of the online material is just done through our e-learning system. We have obviously regular, not only just kind of these recorded webinars at the end of every module, but we also have these regular, we call them live accelerator sessions. The idea is that we want people to go through our syllabus, and it's probably about 5-6 hours of content. But then at the end of it, attend one of our live sessions. And even though they're live, we obviously have them replayed on YouTube available to watch back on demand. It's just an unlisted video that we'll give you exclusive access to. And it's a 2-hour session. It's a bit grueling. Myself and my colleague Harry sit here and kind of drill into what you need to know. But for a lot of people, it works. It means that you can get through our content as you need it. Sit this 2-hour session. It includes a Q&A, a mock exam, so we'll go through 20 questions. And then obviously for the exam, it's completely remote as well. So we use a remote invigilation service, so it means you don't actually have to come into like one of our test centres and do it. And it can be done 24/7. You need to book it 72 hours in advance so that the company can staff their proctors well in advance. But you can book it for 6 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the mornings, whenever suits you. It works really well for lots of people.
Which a lot of people have, which is good. And because I think at the moment, especially the way the world is, everything has 10 on its head. There's a lot of people that are still working, have to do it around, but there's a lot of people that aren't. So whatever works best, I think the versatility of the academy really does help out. And for people that have the PFCO, anything like that, we are recommending that you do our free A2 CofC course, because it will give you that further training. It's all about your development, but also a better understanding. It's the same reason that you're wanting to watch this YouTube live, is to help you understand what these new regulations mean. It took me a while to really understand them properly, because they are so different to what we were aware of, and it really has flipped. So I've done the A2 CofC, most of the office have. It will help. So yeah, even if you're in a good situation, or even if you just want a reminder, take advantage. It's free of charge. As long as the actual test is what you pay for at the end. So it's £49 excluding VAT. But I've got a lot of my past customers that I'm just saying, get on the A2 CofC course, get aware of what's going on. Like we've mentioned it a couple of times, the cylinder. That's one of the major changes from what the PFCO was, being a bubble. But yeah, it's there to take advantage of, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So next we're going to go on to the GDC, what it means, what it stands for, where does that place us? Yeah.
Sure. So the GDC has replaced the course that we used to run over the last few years, and in the past this used to be kind of like a 2-3 day ground school.
Yeah.
And then they would do their operations manual in the interim and then come back for a flight assessment. It used to be quite a long process.
Yeah.
Certainly with certainly with the lockdown situation, it prompted us to jump on the e-learning bandwagon and make sure that remote learning can be accessed by people, but not just pushing it on there, making sure that people actually learn at a much better rate and being in a classroom. So the actual GDC course itself, it's realistically probably about maybe 12 to 15 hours of learning on the actual content. But it's not just that. It's not as easy as the A2 CofC where you just do the test and you're done. Obviously there's a theory test to do, and it's the same procedure as the A2 CofC. However, with the GDC, we needed to draft an operations manual. But then after that's been drafted, we then need you to actually come and undertake a flight assessment with us. So you would do that. Obviously, we give you all the guidance you need. We give you templates. We will review your operations manual continually until it gets to the point. Next slide, right? And yeah, you have some theory examples, some choice 40 questions. The flight assessment is, we do have quite high pass rates on it, but it's really important not to judge a training provider based on their pass rate. There's absolutely no relevance. Obviously, we push this. We want everybody to pass through, but not everybody does, because they have to be at a certain standard that we require. So it's, we give everyone the amount of resources that they need to kind of get through, and then I suppose that part of this course relies on you to kind of go out and do the training before you come up and do the assessment with us.
That's it. At the end of the day, it's a test, isn't it?
Yeah.
And as we've spoken about, this is about risk, it's about safety, and again, we need to make sure your processes are absolutely up to scratch. That you put into play best practice. Is it best practice that's going through everything that you do? For example, the practical that's now got that slightly changed, hasn't it, from before? It's now got a bit of case study flying as well.
Yeah, a bit. I mean, it's a bit essentially an element of the practical flight assessment is scenario based.
Yeah.
And to be fair, we've done that in the past with a lot of bespoke customers, such as like military, police forces and stuff like that. Certainly when some of their flying is a bit more complex, but generically, depending on the sort of environment that you're operating in, we'll have some form of case study in there where we need to just undertake, something. We're just taking a photograph, videoing the subject. There's nothing to prepare for that. We just want to see that you can operate safely, which is all we need. I mean, the A2 course is only 4 modules, whereas this is 9 modules in total. And we dive into a lot of depth on the planning and preparation side of things. Focusing a lot on the pre-flight surveys and the risk assessments, because once we get that approval from the CAA after our courses, they're allowing us to be completely unlike anyone else, operate much closer with anything up to 25 kilos, which we don't sell an aircraft that's 25 kilos, but that's a massive weight to fly overhead the public. So with that just comes with a couple of different responsibilities as well.
Yeah, fair. And in terms of the course, and we touched on it with the A2 CofC, this is interactive. It's not just, because I've had a lot of customers quite recently as well, now that the weather's getting better, now that we're allowed to go out and outdoors a little bit more. And the restrictions are being open, but people are saying, "Oh, when are the face-to-face courses coming? When can we get?" I prefer doing it face-to-face, and you know, I hear that because I did mine face-to-face, and I get that completely. But this is such an interactive course now. There's just so much to engage with. Like you mentioned, the virtual training sessions, the accelerator sessions. There's a lot going on now. So it's not just like a presentation where it's just reels and reels of text. There's a lot to engage with. So, for example, let's say the GDC. So as Duncan said, you've got all these 9 modules. You've got quizzes at the end of each module. You've got virtual training sessions. You've got videos to watch. There's all sorts going on. And there's also a Dropbox load of information for you to do some more reading if you wanted to. So there's a lot to it. The A2 CofC very much is a ticking box exercise. I did it over a weekend, a little bit of reading. Look, I'm an expert in the field, and it took me about 4 hours to complete that. For someone that's coming into the industry, that might be a little bit more of a chew. You might do that over a couple of weekends. Again, that's absolutely fine. For someone who is operating a larger drone, they might want to just tick that box or jump to the GDC, whatever works best for you. But essentially, the CofC Academy will do that anyway. But yeah, in terms of GDC, very, very similar to the PFCO, but we just need to flip that mindset to safety and risk again and again and again. But yeah, that's essentially that really. I was going to ask Duncan just a couple of examples just to give you an idea where they sit. So in terms of situational scenarios, again, coming back to that, what do I need? That's been asked quite a lot. So if I was like doing a commercial roof inspection, realistically, let's say we're in an industrial estate, we've got permission to fly there, what level of training, where would that sit at?
Sure. So I suppose first thing, industrial area, congested area, we need to, either, I suppose depending on the weight of the drone, we need to either undertake the A2 CofC or the GDC. So, we definitely need to do one of them. We need to fly in a congested area. If the aircraft's below 4 kilos, then it might be feasible to operate in just with the A2.
Mm-hmm.
However, the inability to overfly members of the public just means that, specifically with a roof survey, because it's not, by all means, I'm not an expert in the field of surveying, but for a lot of inspections, a lot of mapping areas, you've got to have significant overlap on the outside of the roof. So it's not like you'll have, it's not like you'll be able to fly perfectly over the roof. You will need to offset it slightly.
Yeah. Which
means that it's likely that you might have to overfly somebody. So it again depends specifically on the location, but 9 out of 10 times it's probably going to be feasible to undertake that GDC training.
Yeah.
For sure. It just means that you'll have, I suppose, like a flat agreement with the CA that you can only fly people. You won't have to worry about it. You can just, that you can, it means that you won't have to turn down any jobs as well. By saying that you're not qualified for it.
Yeah. And there's the insurance side as well. So I've recently just recorded a podcast with George, and he was saying a lot of the guys that they're winning work is actually with their insurance. With their insurance, a lot of them are asking for them to have like GDC, that's standard of training.
Yeah, I suppose we work quite closely with a lot of insurance providers. And sort of based off what a couple of them said to us is they will significantly discount somebody that has attained obviously the GDC. And if you've just got the A2 CofC, but still give you commercial insurance, they'll put a premium up by about 20%, depending on the amount of cover that you need. I mean, minimum liability is usually 5 million, but if you want to go and operate on council land, or if you want to operate somewhere at an airport, sometimes they require 10 or 20 million at a minimum, which you can get short term, but you'll probably need the qualifications in order to get the insurance.
Yeah, so it just keeps on coming around, 100%. But yeah, in terms of those regulations, and just another thing to add is, are you going to be confident? So you might have insurances in place, you might have a really good drone, but then you're going to be confident to go and do that job. If you've just done your A2 CofC, do your GDC, you're being tested by us. We actually sign you off as an RAE, but then also the CAA do as well. So there's, again, it's peace of mind for the customer, isn't it?
Yeah, and dependent on the size of the company as well as doing the inspection, you might want to have an operations manual there to standardise stuff. So obviously, like the copters, all of our processes are very much standardised so that everyone's doing the same thing. The planning is the same. some people can get away with it if you're just operating by yourself, but if you are more than a one-man band and you have plans to expand, then you really need to start thinking about potentially getting someone on the course.
Yeah, big time. Okay, well, I was going to use another example, but I think we've kind of covered that anyway, so I'm just going to jump to the last one, which is real estate. So a lot of people, this is like a beginner job to get into the industry, get the hours up, get some case studies, and also a bit of practice. Where would they fall?
Sure.
We're just sticking with like housing estates, let's say.
Yeah, I think certainly terraced housing is the one which causes the most problems for people in the industry, because getting that separation distance probably isn't attainable.
Yeah.
When I refer to separation distance, we're talking about the distance from people. You would struggle, depending on the size of it, you'd struggle to undertake it with an A2. You might be able to get away with it, but that's not what you want to say.
Yeah, exactly.
I suppose, with everything, you've got to think worst case scenario. And, say, for example, the aircraft crashed. Dependent on the severity of the crash, there'll be a process with potentially the Air and Accidents Investigation Branch, and you don't want to be sat there saying to them, okay, well, I thought I could just get away with this qualification.
Exactly. When we keep coming back to safety and risk, what is the worst that could happen? And when you go to the Level 5 course, and then you start going deeper into human factors and the what if, and it's all about risk. It's all about safety. It's all about risk.
100%. I mean, we need to make sure that we're as impartial as we can, and obviously we are on this webinar making sure that people understand the regs completely. For sure there might be some instances where people just need to undertake the A2, and that's perfect. But we just need to make sure that people are informed, more than anything, on the regs and the requirements and what they need.
Yeah, 100%. It's just being safe. That's all it is. And as Duncan said, there's no pressure. There's a lot of people that say, look, we just need the A2 CofC. We just need to tick this box. It might be just adding a string to the boat. That's absolutely fine. And these new regulations are absolutely perfect for that. So just jump on the new courses.
Can I just touch briefly on the conversion course?
Yeah, absolutely.
So we brought out a conversion course last month for anyone that might have have held previously a permission for commercial operation. There are a couple of prerequisites attached to this and requirements, but if you're significantly experienced and you've done the qualifications before, you'll need to attain GDC before 2024. And for some people, we're able to exempt them from the practical flight test. You do need to do the theory, and once you do the theory, you'll understand why you need to do the theory, because there are some subtle changes. Yeah, so it's really important that you obviously get that done. But we are able to effectively just give out, well, not give out, because there's cost associated with the course, but it's significantly less obviously than the full course. Yeah, and we pretty much do it at cost to make sure that people can get the GDC certificate. Just by doing that additional training, keeping the currency up and doing the theory test as well.
Yeah, because there have been a few people, obviously COVID's kicked in, people haven't been operating as much, so this is another reason why we're going to cost. It's a similar reason why we're doing the A2 CofC essentially. It's getting people back into the industry, because we all need to be positive advocates, don't we, really? So it's just getting people back in. So by all means get in touch if you've got any questions about that as well.
100%, because I suppose, obviously it's in our best interest that our customers succeed in ideal scenarios, and get people that sit our A2, buy a Mavic 2 Enterprise, then come back a year or two later to pick up in the trees. And, obviously that's our ideal scenario, do some more training courses if they need, and, we hopefully cater for all that.
Yeah, exactly. Do you know, that's exactly what I bang on about all the time, but it's so true, because if you do well, you're going to come back to us and we're going to help you and try and do your best as possible. It's the reason we have all this content going out, is just to help everyone get going. But let's crack on with the Q&A. Any questions come in?
Yeah, so why did the CAA introduce the A2 CofC and the GBC if we already had the PIFCO? So why did they change?
Specifically, I've not had a chat with them recently, but in terms of what we've done is mirrored the EASA law, which is going on there. But as I said at the beginning of the podcast, as technology changes, as it gets more technical, as there's more depth, so the regulations have to do exactly the same. So, and what this is really good for is those people at the bottom of the market, the bottom of the pyramid, that don't need that PFCO, because we did have quite a few people that had to do the PFCO and had to do all those training and that money as well that's associated with it, and they weren't using it that much. So on that side, they're probably absolutely over the moon that these new regulations come in, but then on the other, why has it changed so much? I can see how that is frustrating.
Yeah, I don't understand so much frustration that they've sat the PFCO course and taken from last year.
Yeah.
And but not only that, but if you then need to do some additional training, and I understand why people are saying, well, hang on, why do I have to do this? Why do I have to do the A2 CofC theory test? I've already got a PFCO.
Yeah.
Obviously, ideal scenario for some of it would be great if people were given some cross credit, and it's something which we certainly inquired with at the CAA. But you still need to do the theory test. You are exempt a little bit on the hours. So, if you sat a practical flight assessment with an NQE or an RE recently, then we're able to knock off the hours requirement for the A2 CofC, and you'll find more about that when you go through the course. But regardless, you still need to sit the theory, because it's totally unlike, some of the regs are totally unlike anything that we would have taught last year, and it's really important that people understand that.
Look, and things develop, things change. When there's a lot of different crafts or builders that have to go through different training, you have to maintain your abilities. And for example, if you are doing your sims, or if you have to do your development when you're a commercial pilot, you have to keep training. I know this is a big change in terms of regulations, but if you need to keep spinning everything as a positive, because otherwise we're just going to get bogged down with all these different things. So it's more training, it's more development for you. Okay, so most of the industry are really negative about this. Okay, why don't you just jump in with both feet, and you can be the master of the trade when everyone else is lagging behind. You could be that positive person who's being an advocate for these new regulations, and it's putting a positive spin on things all the time. And I do get it, because it's such a massive change. But
it's all positive.
That's
It's so
the
much
thing,
easier
yeah.
for people to, not just easier, but cheaper as well.
Yeah.
I know this has caused a lot of people to start exploring drone operations, but if we take our cast back a year, 2 years, companies are offering PFCO courses for close to £2,000. Whereas it's been drastically reduced in price with these new regulations, which is fantastic. It just means it's so accessible for everyone.
That's it. Accessibility is unreal now. So good. But yeah, I think we went into that one bit. But
That's
okay, awesome. Well, look, like I said, we're going to be going over this every month, slightly different every time, just so we can tweak it, see what changes there are, and then move on from there. But yeah, thanks for joining us, everyone, and thanks Duncan as well.
Perfect. Yeah, no worries.
Legend. See you there, guys.
Thanks, guys.